Paso.
I'm Maria Garcia, and today we're talking to the candidates for City Council District 1, which encompasses a large part of the West Side. And joining us now are the candidates. We'll start from left to right with Bertha Gallardo, Al Weisenberger, Dr. Rick Bonart, Manny Hinojosa, Peter Schwarzbein, and Daniel Lopez. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Let's get to the first question. Tell our viewers what sets you apart from the other candidates. We'll start with you, Ms. Gallardo.
I think my extensive business experience with an industry that's just as heavily regulated and whose budgets are just as big as the city qualifies me to just head in there and hit the ground running.
Okay, Mr. Weisenberger, what separates you from the candidates?
Well, I not only have a lot more experience than the other candidates in the race, I have the kind of experience that counts. I owned my own automobile dealership here for 10 years. I've been a practicing attorney for 25 years. I was a second lieutenant in the United States Army, did a tour in Vietnam, and I was a major felony prosecutor. That broad experience makes me better qualified.
Dr. Bonart.
And I too would have to tout my experience as why I think I'm more qualified. I had a business for 35 years. I just retired, a small business owner, veterinarian. Decades of citizen advocacy and going to city council and trying to save open space. And of course the last 4 years is that I worked on the public service board, and we handled a broad range of things that are very applicable to what I'm doing now. $200 million budget. Now I'm ready to step up to the city with an $800 million budget.
Okay. Mr. Hinojosa.
Thank you. What makes me different is that I want to go forward with the quality of life projects, with our progress, having one of the best cities in the whole nation. But I want to make sure we don't forget the basics. I want to make sure we take care of the infrastructure, we can get to work and back. I want to make sure that we don't do it at the expense of the taxpayer.
Mr. Schwarzbein, what sets you apart?
Well, first of all, I've never been a bureaucrat. Last thing you call me is cookie cutter. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an educator, I'm a small business owner. And what we need is a business-oriented, creative problem-solving approach towards this city. We're a unique city, and as such, we deserve unique solutions so we can continue moving forward in the 21st century.
Mr. Lopez, what sets you apart?
Well, my degree in finance and my business experience with the community here in El Paso, 4,700 infrastructure and capital improvement projects under my belt, successfully helping protect the actual businesses here in El Paso and working on the economic developments. In addition, going in with the support of city employees. Currently, they are endorsing me, and so I'll have their support if I'm elected.
Okay, let's get to our first question. We're really entering a tougher stretch for El Pasoans here. Taxes slated to increase to pay for the signature projects of the Quality of Life Bond, also for operation and maintenance. Now, in the campaign trail, there's a lot of talk about keeping taxes low. That's easy to say. But tell us specifically how you do that. And we're not looking for general statements. We're looking for specifics here. Ms. Gallardo, we'll start with you.
I think what we absolutely have to do is focus on shifting the tax liability from the homeowners to the commercial and business sector. And one of the best ways to do that is to actually develop our economic environment so that more businesses come in to set up shop here and take on some more of that liability. That would definitely help. It's one of the ways, and one of the best ways, to get a bigger bang for your buck is to get the business sector to invest more in the community.
So which specific policies get the business sector to invest in this community specifically?
It's to grow the business, to grow existing businesses, allow them the facilitation to be able to do that, also to go and recruit additional businesses to set up shop here in El Paso.
Okay. Mr. Weisenberger, how do you keep taxes low at a time of major investment? The same question to you.
Well, it's going to be a challenge, there's no doubt about that, but we're going to have to improve the efficiency of city government. I believe that a lot of the things that the city does now can be done cheaper, and that will free up excess funds for the purpose. Then we have to be creative in how we approach the financing of these projects. And then lastly, we have to grow new industries. We have to bring new industry in to create jobs, to create a broader tax base.
You said the city can do things cheaper. What specifically can the city do cheaper?
Well, we have a brand new city manager, Tommy Gonzalez, who's a student of Lean Six Sigma, which is an efficiency method in which you get the employees to buy in to improving their efficiency, doing the same amount of work with less people. That's the type of efficiency I'm talking about.
Dr. Bonart, same question to you.
I think that one of the things we can do is definitely deal with construction management, make sure that the quality of life bond projects stay on target and that we don't go overboard with the spending on those. Adjust the scale or scope of those projects to keep them on budget is one way to keep everything on track. The other thing is, if you do keep property taxes on a hold, that stimulates businesses to come here. Increasing these costs, continuing tax increases makes us less competitive in other markets and will just defeat everybody's plan to shift the burden to other businesses.
Okay. Mr. Hinojosa?
First of all, we have to adjust everybody's attitude. I've been to many meetings at City Council, and it's so easy to spend millions and millions of dollars. I've heard one of the City Council people, for example, say, hey, what is the cost-benefit analysis on this issue? And he just gets totally ignored, and they go on to vote for the project. We can't go on like this. We have to treat people's money the way we treat our own money, a higher level of criteria in everything we do.
Okay, so specifically...
well, for
what do you
example,
mean?
everybody needs to be reoriented. Have a meeting in which everybody says nothing gets passed anymore unless the DCC and the CPC department and the City Council address each issue with a higher criteria before we spend any money. We cannot approve projects anymore unless they pass a cost-benefit analysis at a higher level.
Okay, Mr. Schwarzbein, same question for you.
So we need to be looking at being more efficient and effective with how we spend our money. We need to be looking for public-private partnerships, sponsorships, and naming rights for the 2012 Quality of Life bonds, so we make sure that they come in on budget and on time. And we have to be more targeted with our incentive programs so that we can keep local business here while attracting foreign investment as well.
When you say more targeted with our incentive
So we need
program,
to be-
which incentive program specifically are
So
you
the
referring to?
380s from the city, we need to be having them really targeted towards the kind of industry that we want, industry that pays above the median county wage, industry that's forward-looking for the 21st century, like solar, renewable, sustainable tech, and medical as well.
Okay, Mr. Lopez?
Well, with our economic development, we could tap into the actual resources here. I've witnessed existing businesses wanting to joint venture with each other to create new industries themselves because they're experts here in El Paso and they know the climate here, they know the resources available. So that's what I think we can do specifically, is avail those tax benefits to those people.
Okay, so you're talking about incentives as well?
Yes, because oftentimes the incentives go to outside companies coming in. Why don't we have our companies here benefit from growing our economy as well, and not waiting for someone to save us? We can save ourselves.
Okay, I see. We have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to ask an individual question to each of the candidates, a question catered specifically to them. So stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Maria Garcia, and today we're talking to the candidates for City Council District 1, which, as we told you, encompasses a large part of the west side. Right now, we're going to get to specific questions for each individual candidate. Ms. Gallardo, we'll start with you. We're going in the same order. You're high-level executive for Las Palmas del Sol Hospitals. You've said in a recent debate that council, quote, absolutely could move funds from one quality of life bond project to another. Then why give voters the specific amount of money that will be earmarked? Surely you can see why that's a little troubling for some voters.
Let me put that in context, though. What I said is, if the projects are rescoped, if they are tweaked for whatever reason, and it's possible to move money from one to the other when we feel that, or it's felt that there is a shortfall in one, then possibly be able to do that. Bringing in, my idea from the very beginning was absolutely to collaborate with the private sector so that we could add funding for these projects. And so in the context of moving funding, it's not to create a deficit on one or the other. It's if we feel that one has a priority over the other, maybe funds could be shifted temporarily so that we can get that particular project going. It all has to do with priorities and what's going to benefit the community quicker.
When you say move funds temporarily,
well, I mean, in the way that the funding works and the way I understand it is that we have this pool of funds, and these funds are there for the particular projects that were voted for. And the staffing at the city put dollar amounts for each particular project. So that doesn't mean that it has to, that the Hispanic Culture Center stays at 5.6. Maybe we could do something if we know it's going to benefit the
I see.
community.
Okay. Mr. Weisenberger, you've said you plan to be a one-term candidate if you win. For voters who are concerned that that means you won't be fully invested in city business because you'll be there for a short term, what do you say?
Well, I don't think of 4 years as a short term at my stage of life, to be honest with you, okay? First, let me say, my intention, I'm a practicing attorney, but my intention is, certainly during the first year, to phase out my law practice, so I will be a full-time city councilor. But the reason that I think one term is the way to do it is because we face the biggest challenges in the next 4 years. I see too many times where people on city council, they're thinking about running for re-election, or they're thinking about maybe running for mayor, they're thinking about running for Congress or whatever it is. So every vote, they think about how it's going to affect their election in the future. This is the last election I'm running, and so I don't have to worry about that. I only have to be concerned about doing what I think is the right thing and what the citizens of the district want.
Okay, Dr. Bonart, you got a lot done during your time at the Public Service Board, but also based on your service there's some perception by some that you maybe don't have the temperament to be a consensus builder on City Council, and that you can be divisive, and some say this is especially troubling for City Council, which already gets its good share of political bickering.
And how would I address that, I guess, is the question.
Yes.
And the answer is this. You know, when I came on the Public Service Board, it was a 52-year-old organization that had everything ingrained in it. We couldn't even get computers. So when you're challenging that kind of status quo, it appears as though you are argumentative or you are bickering. And as far as what I would do on City Council and how I would pull that together, I think I'm going to create the balance that that organization needs. It's no longer an organization that requires just yes men and rubber stamping, but some creative solutions, and that's what I can bring.
Okay. Mr. Hinojosa, you run for City Council before. Some people have told me they can't take you seriously because you're a chronic candidate with a whole lot of talk about fixing the budget, but no real experience with big budgets.
Well, I do have experience with big budgets. I was the manager and part owner of a almost a $2 million apartment complex, okay? So I know about money. I've been in business most of my life. I've had a car repair service. I've been serving the community, and I still do. I think what you need to remember about me is that I am going to go forward with the city's progress, but I'm going to take care of the working class and the working poor. That seems to be the element that is missing here. But I have the experience as I've had my own businesses, and I'm successful even right now in the properties that I own.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hinojosa. Mr. Schwarzbein, you're an artist, but also a professor. There's people who wonder what exactly your job is. How can we take him seriously when your occupation seems a little ambiguous to some people, and that means a lack of experience for some voters?
Well, I've been an instructor at the Texas Tech College of Architecture for 2 years now. I've been an instructor at NMSU. I've been a small business owner. I've had a photography and production company now that I started in New York City. I shot for the Fortune magazine, Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. I've been featured on NPR. I've lectured at Harvard University. I don't see how you could call me anything but professional. I've also brought tangible results to this city, and I look forward to working harder for the citizens of this district and of this region.
Okay. Mr. Lopez, you've talked about transparency, about managing the budget. That's easy to say in a campaign, but very few people know what your actual vision is, your actual plan. For voters who've been paying attention to this, but find very little distinction with your platform, what do you say?
Well, basically what I want to do is help bridge those communities together, builders, community, and the city government, the employees, to make sure that the flow of managing these projects goes well, because it's difficult with the complexities of each project. They each have a particular design, a particular need, and the community have a particular desire.
So that's your vision.
I see that we can pull together as a community, like what I've done is community building. I've been able to help businesses when they're in trouble, bring them together to service their customers, and get back on track to doing what they dreamed as far as their business was concerned. And that's what I want to do for the city, is bring them together with the community and have government for the people once again.
Okay. Now we're going to allow the candidates to ask a question to another candidate of their choice if they choose to do so. Ms. Gallardo, will you be participating in this? Would you like to ask another candidate a question?
Sure, with all due respect, and I want to set a caveat. I think we all have more or less the same plans and wishes for our city. So, but I've been interested in knowing, Mr. Hinojosa, the $100,000 tax, I guess, abatement or relief for homeowners. How are we going to replace that revenue deficit if something like that was implemented?
You're talking about the $100,000 tax abatement that you've proposed in your
Right.
campaign.
Yes, it's my baby. It's my jewel. $100,000 tax exemption for anyone 65 or older, elderly. First of all, I want to make things very clear. It is a proposal, and you're asking the wrong person for this reason. We were promised quality of life investment 4 or 5 years ago. We have been investing in quality of life, so it's time we start reaping some of the benefits. Now, either we are going to have quality of life, which does include some tax relief, or let's stop calling it quality of life and call it what it's becoming if we don't watch carefully, and that is a tax on recreation and sports.
But her specific question
I
was,
understand.
how will
Well,
you replace that revenue?
As I said, first we have to admit that we've been doing it wrong. That's number one. Once people who have been proposing and selling this idea to the city that we're under a quality of life track, once they admit that we're not giving people quality of life because we're taking away 20% of their paycheck, then the next step will be to now have someone like me with a high criteria on spending that I've been repeating, and that is that nothing will be approved unless it can really show that it's a financial benefit to the taxpayer.
Okay.
So the
all right.
criteria, it all goes back to going back to the table and revision of all projects to make sure they're going to benefit the city.
Mr. Weisenberger, will you be asking another candidate a
Yes,
question?
I will. I'd like to ask Peter Schwartzbein. When did you move into District 1, and are you a District 1 homeowner?
It's a very good question. I've been living in District 1 now for over 2.5 years. I currently live with my girlfriend. I have not yet purchased a home, but I am a homeowner. I am a property owner in El Paso, and I do pay taxes.
You're not a property owner in District 1.
I'm not a property owner in District 1.
Mr. Bonart, a question.
Wait, can I just finish that? I was born and raised in District 1. I grew up in the Upper Valley. I used to spend my childhood running down the banks of the Rio Grande, roughhousing on the ditches in the Upper Valley. I graduated from elementary school at the Paso Hebrew Day School over by the Coronado Country Club. I'm really happy to have come back to El Paso and be living in Kern Place. So I know District 1 inside and out, and I have for decades. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bonart.
In order to not appear contentious or divisive, I'm not going to ask a question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bonart. Mr. Hinojosa, a question for another candidate?
Mr. Weisenberger, you say that you're going to phase out your practice, but nevertheless, to be clear, you're still going to have 2 jobs if you were to get elected. Is that correct?
I'll have 2 jobs probably for 6 months, but the nature of the work that I do, which is criminal defense, can very easily be wound down, and I would expect that I'll be able to close down the practice within 6 months.
So while some of us will be full-time, you'll be part-time.
For 6 months, that's probably true.
Okay, Mr. Schwarzbein, a question?
I guess I'll go back to Al. Mr. Weisenberger, all your children have left El Paso. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to be 35 years old. A lot of my friends have graduated from high school here, have gone and blossomed in other cities, and they always text me and ask me about what the sunsets look like in El Paso and how they can come back. You had a successful business in the 1980s, which you sold. What concrete steps and proposals do you have to make El Paso more competitive for young, hard-working El Pasoans, and to make us more competitive in bringing back El Paso expatriates? I don't know if you're familiar with this, but El Paso County is one of the largest counties with people under the age of 40. And yes.
In terms of number of people under the age of 40?
In terms of people under the age of 40.
I don't know what percentage of that is people that graduated here and stayed, or what percentage of that came from other places. I could say my 3 sons all graduated from college, and they would all love to come back to El Paso, but unfortunately they all work in the financial industry and there are not job opportunities for them here. I do not believe that an individual city representative can be actively involved in going out and pursuing jobs, but that individual can be supportive of the entities that try to bring jobs in, and I certainly would do everything I could to do that.
But his question was, what concrete steps will you take specifically to make this city more competitive for young professionals?
Well, I think that's kind of a trick question, if you will, because I don't think a city rep takes concrete steps other than to provide funds for the entities that go out to provide the opportunities and look for industries to move here.
Okay, but specific policies that you would support, maybe?
Well, I would support providing more funds for the entities like the Borderplex Alliance that go out to try to find industries to move here.
Okay, thank you
Certainly.
so much. Mr. Lopez, a question for a candidate?
Well, before I ask the question, I want to thank everyone here that's run with me, and I look forward that however the result, that we can continue working together, because we're all El Pasoans and we're all proud to be here, and we all want to serve, and I know I want to serve and bring back people into the fold of making decisions. But I wrote down a question, so I'm going to read it because I want to be clear when I ask Ms. Garado the question. You know, I'm sure you've heard Representative Nyland, say that she saved El Paso residents $15 million in electric fees. I would like to know if you agree with this statement, considering the documents from the electric company show that those $15 million were saved by industrial consumers only. So what's your feeling on that issue?
That's a good question, and I wish I could address it with full knowledge of the issue, of the topic. But it has been said that the homeowners have also benefited.
Not much.
So unless I am privy to
It's all
those
open record.
documents, I know they're open records, but that information also tends me to believe that the homeowner as well as the commercial base fees are the ones that have benefited.
Well, documents differ. It shows the majority of the benefit went to industrial consumers and not the homeowners.
Okay, that wraps up our forum. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Gallardo, Mr. Weisenberger, Dr. Bonart, Mr. Hinojosa, Mr. Schwarzbein, and Mr. Lopez. Thank you very much. And you've been watching this debate hosted by ABC7. Thank you for joining us.